And now let's talk more about the property and investment business. We have here with us Iwan Sunito, is the founder and CEO of Crown Group. Pak Iwan, thank you for being here.
Thank you too, Bobby.
And just I want to go for that Silicon Valley, Indonesian Silicon Valley. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I mean, it's something that I felt like Indonesia has got a lot of young people, and I think if we can tap into the resources of this borderless community, a global community, and creating more, not about building, but more about a culture. When you think about Silicon Valley, you got Palo Alto, where the home of Steve Jobs, but it's also the home of people like Thomas Alva Edison. The whole city was built on a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship, and that's built on Stanford University. So I thought it's about time for Indonesia to actually lead the way. We had a lot of very clever young people, and I've come across with some wonderful young people who are actually importing or exporting the virtual reality to the world, and I was so surprised that we're actually doing that right now.
And to get that to the final, to make it happen, how did you arrange this to these youngsters, talents, or maybe the government officials, for example?
Well, I think we need to find, first is the land first. So we've got a couple of land, but I think lately I just come across this new venture where somebody is actually talking about bringing Crown Group to participate in the land. It's a waterfront site, which is fantastic. But in addition of that, there's going to be a massive land that it can actually create, and we virtually have to build a city of the future. It's almost like the Songdo city in Korea. It's a new city that is created, advanced technology, new culture that has to be injected into it. But we need the support of the government, but I think collaboratively, like the private and the government, and perhaps tapping into the world's best is the key and the solution to Indonesia.
Any specific location you're eyeing now?
Well, I can't say anything more than this waterfront, really. I mean, it's the first pilot project will be about $500 million GRV, gross relation value, but the next stage will be a few $1 billion, if not significant, much more than a few billion.
All right. Now, we've been experiencing a slowdown in property business a couple of years back, but now everybody is being positive for this year and the next year. And how about you?
Well, I'm always positive about property. I mean, if you build the best, people are looking for the best, and there's not many people who actually create the best. I mean, when we launched Infinity by Crown Group in 2015, we sold $380 million in 5 hours. That was during the crisis in Shanghai, right?
Yeah.
Last 3 weeks ago, I mean, we launched Waterfall by Crown Group in Sydney, and this is despite the cooling back measure by the government in terms of foreign funding, foreign buyers getting funding, and we launched and sold $300 million in 4 hours. So I think it's just, even in the good time, good property sells. The bad time, good property also always sell too. Now, I'm confident about Indonesia. I think it's there's a better government, and the opening to the foreign buyers for property above $500,000 is actually positive. I don't think you're going to see a surge of those buyers, but I think it's a great beginning of a small start for something greater.
And in terms of types, what kind of types do you think is suitable for this country and of course this time?
I think it's we've specialized on residential high-rise with high amenities, like a lot of facility like the club or the resort house, the resort facility. Now, I think there'll be people who are looking for investment. So great position, great location with future growth is a great option for those people who buy. I think there are also people who might want to send their children to study to Indonesia, which is not many, but I think it's a growing number. There are also products that we target. I do feel that there are also people that are local who are downsizer, younger generations that want to live closer to the activities and then of course the downsizer, people in the past used to have a big home, but it's fairly lonely when you have a big home and your kids are studying overseas and your kids are now quite mobile. They don't stay home.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, I'm very happy to hear that you are actually focusing to build this huge Silicon Valley in Indonesia. I mean, from Australia, if you're coming from your experience there in Australia, and now you're giving your talent, mixing with all the local talents here, it's quite surprising and positive in terms of experiencing of having these talents in Indonesia. But how do you see the talents here in Indonesia?
Well, what surprises me is often is that when was the last time that we build buildings that the world is talking about? Well, and we often think that we don't have the talent. The reality is we built Borobudur and Prambanan, that the world are actually coming to Indonesia to see how beautiful the buildings are. The reality is that we build the most beautiful resorts in Bali, in the world, the most beautiful resort of the world in Bali. So I think it's there are a lot of talented young people and creative designers and creative business people who are in Indonesia. I mean, Indonesia, after all, is the home of the 1 trillion economy, which is the largest in Southeast Asia, but we're just not promoting it well enough. So I'm confident there are a lot of people, and there are a lot of people that are looking for a new way of living. And I'm hoping to be able to contribute to this growing economy as part of the diaspora returning back, pulang kampung, to Indonesia.
Since you mentioned it, diaspora, 'cause I was there as well, and to see you announcing yourself, declaring I am diaspora, but I'm happy to see like you and all these, Indonesian people who actually make things great outside Indonesia and bring Indonesia outside. But how do you see it so far in terms of, meeting all those diaspora members in Indonesia?
Yeah. I mentioned in the Diaspora Congress that, despite the small beginning that I grew up in Surabaya, but also grew up in Kalimantan, despite the small, humble business start, it hasn't stopped the Crown Group to become one of the global brand, global platform and multiple business. I have come across with Indonesians living overseas that are just brilliant, it ranges from a small, medium enterprises, artists and professionals and creative designers and people who are in the acting world to the business people like property. And I think what has been done through diaspora, through the initiative of Pak Dino Patijalal, who is, I call him the father of the Indonesian modern diaspora. Nobody else can actually do that. He's been talking.
He did great,
Oh, you couldn't ask for somebody better than him, because he's been asking to step down. He wanted to step down as a chairman, but I said there's nobody else who can fill that role except him, right? And now we see people like Sehat Sutarja in LA, but there are a lot of other people that are, for instance, Ibu Vivi Manan, who is also exporting furniture from Indonesia to US government. That's massive, right? We don't even think about Indonesian exporting to US government. And we had people like Harry Cho, who lives in LA, and then we got very talented people, doctors in Japan. So if we can combine the dots together, my hope is that this platform of the Indonesian Silicon Valley can be the home of all this Indonesian diaspora coming back, returning, but also tapping into the network of people that they know, people who specialize in this creative industry, for instance. So that's my hope, really.
And to make it real, so how in what kind of range of time are we going to see your mission here? Because I would love to see that as well. Yeah,
I think that if everything goes through in the next 2 or 3 months, we'll be signing this MOU and this joint operation that encompasses the first 6 hectares of waterfront, but that also encompasses the next 40 hectares and also the next 1,000 hectares development. So now, how long will it take? Probably about a year before we can launch the vision, but the first stage will be launched somewhere about 2019. That's our hope.
2019. Great. And again, back to the industry. What kind of growth are you seeing here in Indonesia in terms of property business?
I think I think single digit will be healthy. Like 7 to 8% growth, it will be quite a healthy one. Anything more like a double digit will actually lead into a boom and a bust situation. So I think, there are things that have been a setback for Indonesia lately. For instance, the political uncertainty. And I think but I'm positive about Indonesia. The opening of investing in property could actually be the trigger or catalyst for more investors that are coming from overseas to come here. And I think I want to see a lot of them to come here. I think Indonesia, it's time to be a more multicultural city. Because the downside of monoculture like Indonesia is when the economy is down, it is the whole nation that is down. The upside of Sydney, for instance, Australia, is even though it has 25 million people, when it is surrounded by 51% of the world population, which are Asia, and they could easily turn on the tap, and investment are coming. So therefore it's not a surprise when we launch a job like $380 million in 5 hours. That is a turnover of one of your largest listed property enterprise in Jakarta. You couldn't achieve that in one day. The reason for that being able to be achieved is because of the buying power. People who just walked in and say, here's $10 million, here's $5 million in 1 minute, just bang, bang, bang,
So the level of uncertainty is quite small there compared to this country.
Well, you got a lot more exposure to the Asia. So if the economy is down, you have China to tap into, Singapore to tap into, Malaysia, Indonesia. In fact, Indonesia is our second largest buyer for our property. Yeah.
Great. So in terms of buyers, the more from Indonesia.
Well, second largest buyer,
Buyer.
from overseas. The biggest is always China.
China.
China, yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Pak Iwan Sunito. Thank you for being here. And of course, I would love to see your adventure here in Indonesia in terms of building this Silicon Valley.
Thank you too.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.